What's going on, y'all? Welcome to My Two Cents, where we just give our 2 cents on all of the stuff we see on the internet. So today you'll want to tune in because we'll talk about something that men never grew up learning how to do. So grab your glass of wine, share this with a friend, and stay tuned. What's going on, y'all? Jamie Alexander here. Thank you so much for tuning in to My Two Cents, where I like to talk about and comment on the things I see on the internet. There's so many viral clips and opinions and dating and relationships and what you should do and shouldn't do and all this. And I think we should talk about it. So I have a very special guest with me, dating and relationship consultant, Nyatu Marvel. So we're going to get him in here, Ace, so we can talk all the things. What's going on?
Hey, happy Friday. Hey, Jamie.
Happy Friday.
Yeah,
You
I'm
and I have
excited
been
to be
trying to
here.
connect, and here we are.
Here we are in 2023, the Jordan year. We got to make big things happen.
Oh, big things are happening. Like, it's already been an incredible year. How about for you so far? We're 20 days in, but I'm pretty impressed.
I am pretty impressed as well. There are some things that I manifested a year or two ago, and all of it is coming to fruition right now. And so it's a very exciting time for me.
I love that. And of course, that's language that turns me on because I've been talking about manifesting so heavily, especially for the past couple of weeks, because its power has been astounding in my life. And for those that I've shared what I'm doing with, and I'm like, I feel like I have a magic wand. It's incredible.
Black girl magic. You got to use it.
Bling. This is where I need to insert the sounds.
Right. Make all the star pop things effect happen, right?
Exactly. Well, thank you for joining me with this. I really love your content and I love the way you speak. And there's so much that we see on the internet these days when it comes, especially to dating and relationships, and primarily in the Black community. And I like to come from a healthy and integrated, harmonious perspective. And I feel like you have that. So before we dive into our clip that we're going to discuss, why don't you tell the people who you are, what you do, and just like a little bit about yourself?
Awesome. So my name is Nyatu Marvel, aka Mr. Hitch himself. I am a dating and relationship consultant, certified life coach, and also a certified couples counselor, premarital and marriage. I'm an author, I'm a business owner, I'm a consultant. Some would say I'm a Renaissance man. And so I hail from Chicago, Illinois, and I am a Black love enthusiast, and I am very passionate about being helpful in the romance, dating, relationship, and marriage space.
I love that so much. Okay, first of all, Chi-Town in the building. Are you a Cubs fan or White Sox?
I'm a Chicago fan, and so I'm from the South Side, so I got to roll with the White Sox. But as I got older, I realized we are all Chicagoans, and so if the Sox don't make it, I'm definitely going to root for the Cubs. But when it's the Cubs versus the Sox, I have to go with my White Sox.
Oh, Chicago wins. Tell Chicago win.
Absolutely. The Windy City rivalry.
Yes. So my mom is a diehard Cubby fan. So I have to. I have no choice. My Nana worked at Wrigley Stadium, Wrigley Field.
Right.
So we bleed Cubby blue over here.
I'm not mad at that. I've had some great times at Wrigley. You know, the Cubs, they know how to party. I can say that.
Facts. They're the most diehard fans. It's just nuts. I'm just there for the food and the excitement. So
I love it.
Well, I love it. So let's dive into this clip, and I'll just tell you, I didn't tell you backstage, but when it comes up, you might want to tap for sound so you can hear it again. But okay. You guys, I want to share with you a clip I saw online, and we're just going to talk about it from the male and female perspective, from a healthy space, and kind of see what we can derive from this conversation. So here we go.
When did you get married?
I was like 26, 27 years old.
Would you suggest to anybody to get married that young?
Younger.
Huh?
I would suggest people get married younger.
Wow.
I mean, you know, America is the only country between the average age is 26 or 27 to 31. We the latest. which is why we mess up the worst. If we teach them, I run through your 20s, you young, wait till 35. Well, he's running through women. Here go a man that don't know nothing about commitment. And then you expect him at 35 to be in a committed relationship? You expect him not to be looking all over the place when he's been looking all over the place since he lost his virginity? No, that's not, you teaching an undisciplined person or undisciplined man. And then now you expect that marriage to work?
Okay, keep in mind podcast.
All right, all right, all right.
I can't argue with that. So tell me, what are your thoughts on the clip overall?
So my first thought is he made some valid points, but I understand that what he said is true, but not absolutely true. And so we can dive into that whenever you're ready.
Yeah, please. And before we do that, I'll say hi to people in the chat. What's going on, Tawny? Thanks for joining us. Drop an emoji in the chat if you're excited to be here and engage in some awesome conversation. So yes, Nyatu, take us behind the man curtain, because I'm not going to claim to no man's business, but you know, I could definitely relate to this clip and it makes sense to me. But you being a man, what were some of the ideas that you grew up with that were kind of not conducive to marriage and commitment? Like, how did those conversations go for you when your boys or your friends or your uncle and your grandpa, like, what did it look like?
Right. So I definitely had adult men in my life who were discouraging commitment and encouraging being a free spirit and having freedom. In the barbershop, guys who were just a little bit older than me, all the way up to people who were way older than me. I mean, at 8, 9 years old, I got the whole gamut of advice, all the way up to grow up and become a pimp, right? And so, unfortunately, what's missing in Black culture in almost every capacity is mentorship, right? And so currently there is no rites of passage to manhood. And so a lot of young men are reaching 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, even 30 years old, never having had any mentorship about manhood. And so they're just winging it, right? And so the truth is that my work and studies show that many men are still affected from their romantic experiences from childhood, right? And so that's when the stakes are low. And unfortunately, young girls, just being young girls, are wishy-washy. So you write her a note, right? Back in the day, will you be my girlfriend? She checks yes. And then 2 days later, somebody else sends her that same note and she tells him yes. And so I can remember my son, even before high school, being very excited about a young lady. I gave him some money. He bought her some earrings for Christmas, and she dumped him the next day. And again, I am not upset with the young lady. She's just a child as well. But unfortunately, these interactions have really harmed some men and affected their ability to commit the rest of their lives until they actually deal with that hurt and that pain, that boyhood hurt and pain, because our inner child still exists no matter how old we get.
Yeah, and it's a little bit shocking to me to hear, obviously, because I'm immersed in girl chat.
Right.
So it's always us talking amongst each other. And you hear about that, like how men carry the pain from like their high school sweetheart or whatever it is. But I guess this is a real thing. Like, y'all really be like,
Absolutely, that can play a factor. There's there's a long list of factors. I'm not sure we'll get to them all, but one of the factors is that a lot of men don't see a clear return on investment from committing. That a lot of things has changed. There was a time where if you dated a woman properly, courted a woman properly, and asked her father for her hand in marriage, you had a 99% chance of getting a yes, right? And so at that time, there was much less access to women, much less access to sex. And this was the tradition and this was the culture. And those same women, their families would not allow them to date multiple men or entertain multiple men courting them, right? And even if they got in the relationship and got in the marriage and found themselves no longer wanting to be in it, the family, the father, the mother would be encouraging them to stick it out and work through it. That is no longer a factor. You can date a woman correctly, court a woman correctly, and she changed her mind as you guys are walking down the aisle, or a week after you're married, or 10 years into the marriage. And so the return on the investment is not exactly the same. In fact, there are some women where there's a great return on investment, but there's also plenty of women where there's zero return on investment. And so men are looking at that and asking themselves, it's 2023, things aren't the way that they used to be. Why should I commit if there is no benefit to me? And so, again, I believe when two healthy people come together, there's tremendous benefits. And that's part of my mission and passion, is to promote the tremendous benefits of a real partnership and real teamwork in a healthy relationship. But that is not the norm, unfortunately, right now. And that is not the majority of relationships. So you have so many unhealthy dynamics going on. Unfortunately, people are hurt and they haven't healed yet. And so I'm not getting down on anybody. This is just the reality of the world, that if time does not heal all wounds. So if things hurt you, if things wounded you and you don't heal them, they affect how you see things. They affect how you think about things. They affect how you speak about things. And most importantly, they affect your choices and the decisions you make and how you react to things. And if it's coming from a place of fear, if it's coming from a place of hurt, nothing healthy can come of it.
Ooh, that was jam-packed right there. One of the things that stood out to me is the lack of community, that foundation. One, a lot of mothers and fathers being together, and then the process of dating, the courtship. You kind of just jump right into the moment, and then the courtship, and then you talk to the father, and then, you kind of have community to keep you together and all these things. And I love that. I think it's necessary, but I feel like back in the day, those things might have been happening before, obviously, situationship after situationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you're right. There's so much more to work with in that purity of things, because I think we can all go through, like when I was 19, I met a man. We were together for a young man. And we were together for 5 years. We were engaged and everything, but we had already gone through teenage thing. He already had a baby. He grew up with his mother, then moved in with his father. Like, everything was just so broken. I had already had a relationship at 16, and that was kind of hectic. Like, how am I gonna have a hectic relationship and I'm in high school?
Right.
So
yeah, that's where he has a very valid point, that by the time we get to our mid to late 30s and into our 40s, the amount of baggage has changed tremendously. So probably at 21 years old, you have enough baggage and luggage to go on vacation, right? And by the time you're 40, you got a 3-bedroom house moving truck full of experiences that you've had that you may have to overcome. And so I do believe that the older you get, in some ways, the more difficult it can be. And so there is a need for balance. So when he says younger, I'm going to push back a little bit on that, in that when you turn 21, you're legally an adult, right? But you are a baby at being an adult.
yes,
You've been an adult for 5 minutes on your birthday, right? And so you have a lot of experience being a teenager, right? But no experience being an adult. And so usually at 21, we really don't know ourselves. We really don't understand ourselves. We don't fully understand our trajectory, our path, a lot of times at that age. And so the highest divorce rate actually is amongst early 20-year-olds, right? And so I have to push back a little bit. And so while I understand waiting too long can be harmful, but jumping the broom too early can make things more difficult as well.
Oh, I have to agree with you, which makes me wonder, is there a way when we're all growing up? Because believe it or not, a lot of what he said about the men, it pertains to the women in a particular way. It's just a little different. What I'm seeing is none of us are really learning what we need to learn. Okay, so fine. In the 50s, they did it one way, whatever. Now we're in the 2000s. So how do we remix this thing so everybody has an understanding of self and how to discover self and heal self and show up authentically and honestly, so that way, even whether we're in our 20s or we're our 40s, we are taking in experiences and letting them out because we're healing. We're not getting engaged with this one because we saw the red flag, and it's okay. I'm not mad. I'm moving on. We're a little more mindful of how and when we're having the babies. Like, can't we just from high school on learn to move in an updated, healthy way that makes sense? And then it's just going to happen for you when it happens. But right now, like, for example, what I went through, I mean, my dad was Christian. I grew up Christian, and he was also a military man. So it was just no boys. Nobody told me, like, I'm going to like that boy. I'm going to feel this way when this boy is flirting with me.
Right.
What is all of this? And you're telling me no sex and no this, and it sounds good.
Right.
Until you're in a situation. So it's like, I feel like this is a nice time, and we are the generation that can rewrite the rule book a little bit.
For sure.
So we can kind of learn this thing from middle school. Like, how do we take middle school through high school and clean it up? Because I know a lot of dudes, they had kids when they were 16.
Right.
Women too, obviously, because they had, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, you really touched on some points. And so what I understand is that as a child and as a teenager, we have all of these things projected onto us about what handsome should look like, about what pretty should look like, about what a relationship should look like. And all of it is not healthy, and all of it doesn't fit us. And so ironically, again, as a child and as a teenager, it's really difficult to know yourself because you're growing so fast that as soon as you get to know something about yourself, it may very well change. And so it goes back to what I said right in the beginning. Mentorship. Someone has to introduce to the mindset of young people that, hey, we know that television is showing you one thing. We know that the radio has you listening to one thing. Social media is showing you some things. And instead of hyper focusing on what's on the outside, we have to focus on what's happening on the inside. And I tell people that dating is for collecting data. And everybody is collecting data when they're dating, but most of us are collecting data on the other person and on the opposite sex, or the people who will be on the other side of our relationships, and not collecting any data on ourselves, right? And so you have to, as you grow into adulthood, you have to learn to differentiate and use your experiences to help you to differentiate what resonates with you and what does not. There are people, most people actually grow up having a type and pursuing this type a big chunk of their adult life. And this is the very thing that is breaking their heart, because it's not really their type. It's the type that was projected onto them. And so I hate to use strong language like this, but psychological warfare is what's going on, that our minds are being attacked and inundated with all of these different perspectives that may or may not resonate with us and may or may not be healthy for us. And so you really have to use your experiences to look inside, notice how experiences are making you feel energetically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. I don't care what age group you're in, the right connections, whether they be romantic, friendly, educational, classmates, or in the workforce, they either enhance you or advance you, or they're like draining you and or pulling you down. And so my dad used to tell me all the time, every single thing in your life is either propelling you towards where you want to go, or it's holding you back and dragging you the other way. And so we have to learn to identify these things. We have to be introduced to the mentality to look at the world this way, so that we understand when something is not for us earlier in the process than later. And then we'll suffer less hurt, less wounds, and less pain.
Yes, no, I have to agree. And I like the psychological warfare talk, because that's just what's happening, psychological and spiritual.
Right.
All of this stuff is happening on a spiritual plane first. And until we really kind of delve into what that looks like and what that means, it's gonna continue to be a challenge to navigate. I'm gonna go to the chat really quick. We have a question.
Awesome.
Tawny says, we are in 2023. We have all the information we need. Can't the men just Google mentorship and find a trustworthy mentor to follow and build respect for so he knows what to do? Am I being insensitive?
You may be oversimplifying. I don't want to accuse you of being insensitive. I mean, we all want everybody to heal, and sometimes it can be frustrating having to deal with such a huge part of the population that unfortunately is unhealed. I don't know that Google is going to direct you to the best mentor. I think Google is going to direct you to the person with the best SEO, right? Search engine optimization, right? Those are the people who are going to pop up first. And so, I don't want to drift off the subject, but what you said is very important because there are people who are much better at marketing a skill or a service than they are than actually delivering that skill or service. And so sometimes the people who are the best at it, because they're the best at their trade, they're not the best at marketing, promotion, and branding and things of that nature. So they may not be the people that will pop up on Google. And the people who do pop up on Google, I'm not saying that they aren't, but they may specialize more in marketing promotion than they do in healing and or mentorship or manhood or womanhood. But we need mentorship across the board. I know we're talking about men, and I'm not going to drift off on women, but women need mentorship as far as womanhood and wifehood and things as well. There's no rites of passage in that regard either. And so I hear women talk all the time about how their dad was, how their grandfather was, but there isn't a lot of talk about how mom and how grandma were to be able to reciprocate that treatment and deserve that treatment and complement that treatment. And so if all you know is what the other person is supposed to be doing, then you're influencing the unhealthiness of the relationship as well.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up and very well answered. And really that's the purpose of having man and woman on this show for perspective, because you're right. And I didn't get anything. I didn't get what I needed to understand what kind of guy to pick. And when you talk about the types that we all get caught up in, I know I can't think of how many good guys' hearts I done broke because I'm 5'10", I'm looking at the 6'4" basketball player, and I'm just like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. The athlete, I'm cheerleading. This is what we're supposed to. I had no idea. And believe it or not, like my dad was a super upstanding guy. My parents, they were together for 28 years. I grew up with them. My dad is a 20-year retired Marine. Never skipped out on the family. My parents are both very emotionally calm and sane and even keeled. I had all the things, yet and still I'm like out here because they didn't know what to tell me. Right. At one point, I think I was 16 and my dad popped in a video. Yes, a video. It was a DVD or a video. Oh, it was quite some time ago. Okay. And, about STDs and all, like, I need help. I need mentorship. So the same mentorship that men aren't getting to actually be able to commit, women are getting it as far as commitment. We can do that. Right. But what kind of damage are we doing along the way to the men who actually, to ourselves and the men that we're coming in contact with, that is keeping us from lining up together? So we'll commit, but when we're committing to the wrong one, then we get our heart dragged and then try to go to this one and figure it out. Then you're my age and you're 40 and I feel like I'm just figuring it out. I feel like, oh, okay. Right. Okay. Now I got it. This is about me, my spirituality. Like, okay. Right. Cool. I think I'm good now. Right. Yeah. Part of the issue is dads, we don't want our daughters to grow up, No. My dad did not want me to grow up. And I have, pretty much an adopted daughter, and it's a struggle, to watch them grow up and be in adulthood. Thank God my nieces are just so strong and so powerful that they forced me to accept it, that they would engage me in conversations that I would have liked to have run from, and just not being able to accept that they were growing into a young adult women. I didn't want to have to address those things, but they were not having it. They like, Uncle Yatu, we are having this conversation and you are going to help us. And so that is part of the problem.
Another part of the problem is, when a man has a child, especially a daughter, right? He loves her unconditionally right from the start, right? And he will do anything for her. And so a lot of times as dads and uncles, we're looking to show the young women in our lives how they should be treated, and we want to spoil them and we want to treat them right and all of these things. But sometimes we end up creating unrealistic expectations because no man is going to meet you and love you at first sight at the same level as
He's
father
not.
or uncle. No, not that.
I am grown
Now he can
and
get
I
there.
still like I'm joking, but I'm serious. I'm like, you guys just you don't know, you don't see all this, you don't feel this vibe. Like, what is taking
Your
you so
dad
long
is
to
ready
figure
to
it out?
die and kill from you right from the start. And I dare say that, the first time a man lays eyes on you, he may not be ready to kill and or die for you in the same way
Okay.
that a father would. And
Yeah.
so in some of those instances, I've seen women where they have, they expect men to behave the exact same way that their dad did right from the start. And that's not really realistic. And so, of course, the dads aren't trying to do their daughters a disservice. They're trying to give them a leg up and give them a standard and a notch to start from, right? But sometimes it doesn't always go that way because, again, they're not receiving any mentorship on how to treat the men. And so, when we were looking at this clip before we got on here, I was thinking that there was something very important that I wanted to share about the mentorship piece. And that is that life is much more expensive than it was back in the 50s when more men were committed. And women's wants and desires were a lot simpler and inexpensive during that time. And so one of the ways that young men need mentorship to move towards commitment is, money management and how to make money, right? Because when you commit to a woman, what are you committing to, right? It's just not committing to not being with other women, but you're committing at times to be a leader, to be a provider, and to be a healthy partner. And so if a man knows that he doesn't know how to do any of these things, he's hesitant to make that promise to somebody, to invite somebody, hey, follow me, let me be your man, even though I haven't figured out how to make a lot of money yet. I haven't figured out how to manage money very well yet. And I'm combating because, statistically it's been shown that women influence spending at a level of 80%, right? So whether directly or you getting me to buy you some red bottoms or getting me to buy you the purse or getting me to take us on vacation, women are influencing the spending. And some men know that their finances and their capacity is not high enough to balance that, right? Some men, they tell a woman yes, 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 and then they announce to the woman that they're dead broke after a year, right? Because they've been doing all these things to try to impress the woman and make her happy, and they didn't know how to balance their budget and or say no or suggest something less expensive that might be just as appealing. And so, I don't want to pretend like commitment is this simple, easy thing that men should just be dying to do, that there is a lot of responsibility that comes along with this, and women as well. A lot of times because cheating is like one of the biggest deal breakers, right? That women hyper focus on that. I'm not cheating, right? But there's so much more that goes into having a healthy relationship, and if you don't have those other components, you might as well be cheating because you will not accomplish a healthy relationship. And so when you ask somebody or you demand that somebody or you promise somebody monogamy, there's a lot that comes along with that person is somewhat dependent on you for some of the things that boost their self-esteem, some of the things that make them feel attractive, some of the things that make them feel desired. They're dependent solely on you. And so I can remember talking to a young lady and her husband just totally cut her off sexually. And she got to a point where she wasn't feeling pretty anymore. She wasn't feeling attractive anymore, because if he's not doing it, where is it coming from? If you don't care about the guy whistling at the construction site, right? He's up on the 20th floor whistling down. And so if it's not coming from your person, it can really damage a person's self-esteem. It can really damage a person's confidence. And so there's so much that goes into commitment, and we have to be aware of all of these things and prepared for all these things. There's a difference between ready to have it, right, and being prepared to have it and manage it. So we're asking people to give us their hearts, and have we gotten good at taking care of someone else's heart?
And I mean, you have so many good points there. I really think it's a self-work thing too. You know, I'm starting my group coaching program. I've been testing it out, and the women that I work with, they're thriving, and it's amazing. But it's not for me, it's not about how to find a man, how to be feminine, get into a relationship, get married. It's very much about, where are you at, girl? What is your heart posture? What is your spiritual wellness? How do you handle your self-love and mastery? Are you aligned? Are you accountable? Do you know what your why is? Are you able to change your mind? You know, so when I first watched the clip with the men, I definitely was with the old school dude. Like, yeah, I get married. Like, y'all, you wait until all of this time goes by. And now you got 2 kids, you got a kid, you know, you got all this stuff going on. And then, you know, what are we supposed to do with that? But maybe we could meet in the middle, because I do think that there is a need to know thyself. At the end of the day, I feel like it comes down to that first, for men and for women. For women, for maybe different reasons, and men different reasons, but it's still the same, because we're meant to come together. So I know as a woman, I wish I would have understood more about when to walk away, because I know the good guys, so to speak, they get frustrated when they watch women. I could have told you right walking in that dude was no good and was going to do this and that. But our attraction and our picker to that comes from our pain and our heartbreak and our misalignments and our addiction to trauma and chaos and that craziness running through our veins. And we don't even know, we don't have the mentorship to tell us, like, to nip that in the bud early enough to be like, no, you know. And you kind of get addicted to it, and you don't really know. You can get addicted to a negative feeling, and then you just keep finding that in all of these people, and you don't have any idea how to work your own way out of it. So it's really catching a lot of people up, but I think there's hope. I think there's a way out of it. You did talk about 2 things that I wanted to address. One, you said something about, oh my God, I feel like there's 3 things. You said something about the freedom.
Right.
And before we hopped on here, I was looking through something from my phone, and I wrote this whole thing that there's freedom in boundaries. Why is it when it comes to committed relationship, men aren't clicking in a certain space, that there's so much freedom in the boundary of the commitment? Or do I sound crazy?
You know, men are not a monolith. And so while it might seem like we're all the same in some ways, or behaving the same in some ways, or looking at things the same way, very often, you know, we are not, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we all live in the bubble of our experience. That's all we know. And so we think that's reality. It is our reality.
Yeah.
It's not the only reality, or
Yes.
the, you know, overall reality. And so, yeah, if you don't understand things, like I said, there's nothing that happens magically at a certain age. You don't get turn 21 and get a download of what you need to know to make it to 25. And then when you get 25, get a download of what you need to know to make it to 30. And so there are men and women who, you know, are in their 30s and 40s, and, you know, don't know how to do things that we would think are basic, right? Because the years just kept going by, and the information and the mentorship and the learning of the lessons never happened. And so, yeah, I think many people are fearful of boundaries, setting their own, and sometimes fearful of other people's boundaries, because we, you know, one of the ways we self-sabotage in relationships is we take everything personal, right? So your boundaries are some type of attack on me now.
True.
Because you know, I'm wounded, and so I'm taking everything personal. So, you know, that's one of the reasons it's great to speak to a professional, right? Because when you start speaking to the people that you're connected to about certain things, it's only natural that the first thing that pops in their head is, okay, so how does this affect our connection?
Right.
What does this mean about me? Are you
Correct.
talking about me? You know,
Yeah.
these types of things. And so, unfortunately, a lot of people don't see boundaries as a healthy thing.
Yeah, and I think I grew up, I think it messes me up sometimes because my dad was just so committed. And so, back to when you talk about the daughters, I do know a lot of men who are just like, crazy over their daughters, as my dad was over me. And they do the spoiling, the trips, the da 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 da. And I had that to a degree, but to be honest, the only reason why I believe that a man can make a choice and decide day after day to be the man he aspires to be and make the decisions because I watched my dad do it for my mom.
Right.
Not because he was taking me to eat and buying me clothes. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? I have the proof in the pudding that this man had a wife, he was committed, and every day he got up and decided, because I realized as an adult, it's a choice. He could have left.
Absolutely.
Anybody, so could my mom, like any of us, but he stayed. And this is what I kind of been left with, like, oh, well, I know you can. I know you can do it because I didn't see somebody else do it for my mother,
Right.
So I definitely agree with, not every man is the same. Not every outcome is the same. Not everything is the same. But I did grow up with a man who saw the benefit of the boundary because it allowed him to work, have the kids. He could focus on other things because it wasn't now this woman, that woman, who's happening, what, this baby mama, my child support, and who, and my boys. He didn't have all that going on. It was like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. And another thing that sounded valuable to me, and what I think men and women could benefit from, is yes, the mentorship together when we're young, but when it comes to the money and expenses, I don't know none of my girlfriends that wasn't down to build with we were down to build with our men. We were down to build. What are we doing? Okay, you're getting your license, for personal training. I'm doing acting and modeling. He's grabbing me phone numbers to call and looking out for this, and I'm encouraging him when he's right. Like, when we're doing it together, the money's going to be made. And to me, it is such a missed opportunity to see how people can grow together. And if you want to retire your wife, let's make a 7-year plan. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's be real about this. But the women I'm around, we grew up just down. I don't know if they're not making them like that anymore, but I'm saying early on, we got energy. Like,
right. So we do have to understand that that's at least somewhat of a rarity. Popular culture right now, there's a great debate, right? 50-50 men are less of a man and aren't providers and aren't real men. And so, again, this is a thing. And the reality is that the majority of the population, men and women, don't make enough money to carry the entire load themselves. That's just not the reality. That most
it's
men
hard.
aren't millionaires, black or white.
Mm-hmm.
Most men aren't 100,000aires, black or white. And so there's all this, again, psychological warfare being projected on us. There are some women who are perfectly happy to deal with a man, but they're being so much psychological warfare is being projected onto them that now they think something is wrong with them because they're willing to build.
Oh, that's true.
With a man. And even a man can possibly meet a woman who's willing to build with him, but if he is unable to tune out all of the other outside noise, he may start to doubt that his woman is okay with it, because he may see all these other women saying that's not cool, and they're telling her, you got a roommate, right? That's not a man, that's a roommate. And so there are many women who would rather pay 100% of the bills than to be with a man and be contributing anything to it, much less 50%. And so I applaud men and women who understand the need to build together. And, again, all relationships aren't the same. And so if a man and a woman or any type of couple look at their finances and see, hey, we need to get ahead, then they should sit down and put their minds together, their resources together, and their incomes together 100% towards getting to that goal as quickly and efficiently as possible. And so if
it's really simple.
Yeah.
It could all be so simple, but it's
would
complicated.
It would be so simple. But again, there's this psychological warfare that I hope that, this platform and even the conversation that we're having this evening will help to change that narrative, because, different people need to do different things to get to where it is that they need to go. And people need to customize their relationships and not try to fit into some box that may not serve them.
Yeah, customize, that's so true. And I even try to tell women, I mean, at a certain age, like, I'm not gonna lie, at 40 years old, I have certain expectations. I'm grown, like, we're grown. You should be well marinated in whatever you're doing. And in the meantime, so am I in my own way. But I don't work hard. I don't, you know what I mean? I try to, I believe there's a level of alignment that we can have to not only draw the right partner, but I've been the one who was like, if I don't do it, it ain't gonna get done, or what's this dude? Da-da-da. But when you're aligned and solid, I don't, it's like the dark side of that coin is like the independent woman. I don't need da-da-da. But what about the other side where it's just like, my bills are always paid. Groceries, I don't have to worry about. I still take trips. I still look good. I'm not missing no meals. I'm not out here grinding.
Right.
So there's just some level of magic and God and divinity that I've tapped into as a woman, where I'm like, I don't have a husband, but I'm not about to be out here hustling, grinding. That's not what I want. So I'm going to function the way I feel like I deserve and desire, man or not. And my needs are being met, maybe not by a physical husband, but God, the universe, spirit, divine, whatever you want to call it, make sure I'm good. But that's another thing I feel like we can do when we're resting. In that, the demands start to look different. The way we choose starts to look different, because I'm going to be good regardless. And I don't even mean that in a bitter way. I just mean like, I am taken care of. So I'm only going to attract, I feel like, someone who's willing to take care, because this is what I'm doing. This is my essence. So I feel like we could take a lot of the edge off as well with some of the bite in some of our comments, when we as women can find that resting place in ourselves, and we're not actually looking for somebody to pay our bills. Straight up. The bills are paid. You know what I mean? They always are, and they always have been.
Right.
Tawny says, and I have a, yeah, girl. She says, as a woman, would you think I would be able to help fill that void when he doesn't have mentorship? No. Or does he need another man to help him? Yes. What would my role be to be supportive to him? I mean, I feel
Yeah,
like I did,
you answer the questions. Yeah, no.
no.
It does, that's not to say that a woman couldn't share some helpful tips or some helpful information with a man or a young man. But there are definitely certain things that, are exclusive to manhood. And, it's ultimately almost impossible for you to relate unless that has been your experience. And so while I do value having a great friendship with my partner, there's some things I need to talk to the fellas about, because they're the only people that it's going to resonate with. There are a lot of young men who grow up to be upstanding young men who were raised by single mothers. And so I think that is, part great parenting and part God's grace, right? But I don't think it's a strategy. I don't think it's a strategy, right? And so, but unfortunately, sometimes the worst thing that can happen to somebody is for them to do something wrong and it go right. Because now things have to go terribly wrong for them to believe that they're doing it wrong, right? And so when people get away with stuff, like somebody does something and they get away with it, now the next 10 years they're still doing it. They can't figure out why it's not working with them. Yeah, because that one time it was luck, but this cannot be the standard. And so there are male mentorship programs out here, that there are men who have taken it upon themselves that I can think of in the Chicago area, certainly, where they have entire programs designed to provide mentorship. My son in high school, I put him in the Kappa Leadership Institute all 4 years of high school. And this was young men only getting, career mentorship, education mentorship, and manhood mentorship. So in addition to him getting it from me, He was getting it from them. He was getting it from his stepdad. He was getting it from his uncles. He was getting it from my friends. He was getting it from his grandfather. And it really does take a village to make this happen. And so one of the best ways that you can be supportive is to listen, right?
That's what my dad told me.
Yeah, listen to understand that men actually have a need to feel safe as well. And because machismo is projected on us so much at a young age, that there are many men walking around right now and they're not consciously aware of their need for safety, right? And so they don't need a woman to have a gun and to fight to protect them, but we need to be protected emotionally. We need to be protected mentally. We need to be protected spiritually. We even need to be protected financially, right? Because again, if a man is willing to do whatever for his woman and she's a person who abuses that,
just sucking it all up,
right, then it turns into this one-sided relationship that results in resentment, and who knows what the response to that resentment will be. And so listen to him, and maybe if you have some men that you are aware of that you feel like are upstanding men, say, hey, I know this guy, he's a great guy, I think you're great. Great people should connect. Not telling him you need a manhood mentor, right? And I'm gonna connect you one, right? You'll get the same response as the movie Soul Food when Nia Long got Mekhi Phifer a job, right? Instead of it going great, he's breaking glass and kicking doors in. He's so upset, and so it's not just what you do; it's definitely how you do it.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And as a woman, just the woman side of that, I would stay away from that, especially trying to fill voids. I really feel like, and I don't get it right all the time, and because I've gotten it wrong, I feel like I can say this, is I feel like men more learn from observation. So just be great. Fill your own voids. Focus on those voids. Let him do his life. And if he sees you reading your Bible or taking your mentorship class, or you picking up hobbies, or you in meditation, or whatever you got going on, and he's inspired to do the same to fill his own voids, cool. But when we start to put our hands in things, we get too anxious. We're anxious. We need you to respond like this now. We need to happen now. I need to see this now. And it's just, we will drive ourselves crazy. And we will be it's not pleasant for him at all. So take the focus, in my opinion, off him. This is man business. There's nothing that you're going to be able to do but be great.
I agree totally. The best sermon is a great example, right?
Because we're too much. We function different. And if you start trying to teach him, if he ain't learning fast enough or responding in the way you like, you're going to drive him and you crazy.
Absolutely. Also, when we find ourselves focusing on what the other person needs to do, we turn a blind eye to what we need to do. And this is how a lot of people are coping and or self-sabotaging. They spend so much time focusing on what the other person needs to do better or what the other person is doing wrong that they are totally oblivious to the ways that they are harming the connection as well. And so whenever I catch myself, this person is this person is that, I say, whoa. Look in the mirror.
That mirror out.
It's time to look in the mirror and look at how you're influencing things and in the areas that you need to improve and change. And I think that applies to everybody.
Absolutely. I agree. I really feel like this was such a great conversation. So much richness was covered. And I guess going back to the clip, that would, I agree with both sides. If we can meet somewhere in the middle, it's not necessarily an age thing, but I feel like with people like you, people like me, and some of the other people that we're seeing, if we can find a way to influence parents and, from middle school, high school, and early age, and throw some things in there that will support people in their own personal growth to understand what they're even getting into. I think because everything's evolving, it will evolve. I feel like we're that transition generation, us 80s babies to like now-ish. Like we're going to be the ones to change the game and go ahead and evolve this thing a little bit. It's okay. We can keep some of the, grounding things, because you talked about rites of passage. And I don't even know what would that even look like in this day and age? We're not taking kids out to hunt and kill bears and so
Right.
what would a rite of passage be for a man in 2023?
Again, learn how to be responsible for themselves. There are adult people of both genders who don't have good hygiene because no one taught them good hygiene. And people judge people, but I'm aware of people who grew up in households that didn't have working water, didn't have working toilets. And so what may have been normalized for them as far as how many days you can wear clothes and how many days you can go without a bath or a shower, would be foreign to the rest of us. And so, definitely being responsible for yourself, being also aware of your surroundings and having some level of responsibility towards your surroundings. If a king is all about himself, then he is not a king. I don't care if he's wearing a crown. I don't care if he wears a title. That a king feels responsible for the kingdom, right? And
Facts.
the people in it. Two, a huge thing. Everything is not about money, but money is right up there with oxygen because we cannot live and or survive without it. And so, if men had the tools, right, to better themselves all the way around the board, then I think they would be much more receptive to taking on bigger challenges and bigger commitments. So for me, I look at marriage as probably going to be the most difficult thing that I ever do. And that's what makes me excited about it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I have tools. Right?
Yeah.
But when I didn't have tools, I was running from it. I was like, whoa, I don't know that I can pick the right woman, right? And then I don't know that I can be the right man for the right woman and lead us to the promised land. So I just avoided it.
Yeah.
Right? My trauma response was to be single, dating, and unsupervised. That was my brand. Right? That's what I would say all the time.
Somebody get him some supervision.
And unsupervised. And the truth is what I was hiding behind my inability to pick the right woman and influence that relationship the right way to curate a healthy relationship. And so rather than keep beating my head up against the wall, I tried to convince myself that I didn't want it. And so you have a lot of people doing that right now. They're like, I'm single. I want to be single. I'm happy single. And there are plenty of people who are happy single, but some people are doing it as a trauma response. I can't curate. I can't attract the type of person I want, and I can't curate the type of relationship that I want. So I'm going to let go of that desire altogether, right? And embrace something else. And so that's a topic for another day.
Woo! Because that one, don't even get me started. But yes, all of that. I love this. This was incredible. Thank you for your time and dropping all these gems. You were spot on about so much. I know everyone watching got a ton from that. So before we get out of here, let's tell people, one, what H.I.T.C.H stands for, and two, where they can find you on the socials.
Absolutely. And so, I adopted the name H.I.T.C.H from the movie with Will Smith. That when that movie came out, I had a lot of friends and associates come to me saying, man, that movie is about you. You low key been doing that since elementary school and high school. And so when I got into the space organically and I began to monetize it, I developed the moniker H.I.T.C.H. And so I wanted to build on that and take ownership of it. And so H.I.T.C.H for me is an acronym for healing individuals to connect healthily, right? And healthy is in there twice because for so long in my life that I had a lot of theories and perspectives about relationships, but none of them was that it should be healthy. And that's the number one thing that it should be. I'm sure there are things that I was thinking that fall under the category of a relationship being healthy. But when you really wrap your mind around the fact that it needs to be healthy, it really changes your entire perspective. And so the name of my company is the H Agency. The website is thehitchagency.com. You can find me on Facebook. My government name is Nyatu Marvel. That's Nyatu, last name Marvel, like the superhero. Black Panther and Wakanda 2 came from this family. Ultimately, you can catch me on Instagram as Nyatu Marvel is Hitch. And yeah, I do panels, I do radio shows, I do podcasts, and I'm having the pleasure of doing this YouTube with you. So thank you so much for paying attention to what I'm doing with my platform. And then thank you so much for encouraging me and inviting me onto your platform so that we can work together, because I really do believe that that's what it takes. It can't be this, the men speaking for the men and the women speaking for the women, everything being so adversarial. So I love your energy as well. I am a fan of all of your content, and I like the flow of our conversation. Nothing adversarial, no bad energy, having empathy towards one another and understanding that the greater goal is to help everybody get to a better place. And so thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to working with you again in the future, because I know that I will be. And sometimes I get, requests. Can you recommend a woman who would be good to speak? Can you recommend a woman who would be a good influence on this type of event? And so now your name is definitely in the Rolodex of my people that I would suggest happily.
Yes, that blesses me. Thank you so much. Tawny in the chat says, thank you. This was awesome. I learned so much. Pleasure to meet you, Hitch. And then
Absolutely.
the X's and O's for me. Yes, no, I appreciate you so much. I'm so glad you had the time. And I love your platform. We see each other. We will stay connected. Yeah, please refer me. I'm so down. I'm so ready. I don't know how ready I was before, but I'm ready now.
You look like you're ready to me.
Yes, I'm ready. Ready. This is going to be an amazing year. And we're just going to keep all the positivity going. So thank you so much for everybody who tuned in. And we will see you next time.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday. Peace.